It is great to see you all this Wednesday. It's July 17th. This is the weekly briefing, the once a week time we just set aside to ask the bigger questions, understand what's going on, do some encouragement, and welcome you all here. And as I was saying, just this is one of the fun moments where we're going to kind of look at the big picture of what's happening within the industry. I'm going to have some fun today because our tool is somewhat interactive now. So we're gonna play with it. Gonna look at some sliders that we have, look at some different segments of the industry, look at some mega trends that are happening cash wise. I gotta be honest. There's a couple of surprise looks at it as I look at a 2-year or 3-year scope on something. But then when I pull back and kind of like, our side, like when I look at that just the last 6 months scope, you feel one way, but you pull back and look at the two-year scope, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally how it feels. Nobody wants to be reminded of 2023. I'm going to remind you a couple of times of how bad it was and how it feels differently now. All right, so let's dive into it. I just want to explain some of what we're looking at here, the big picture stuff. We're going to look at a couple of major items, big asset classes and liability classes, just to get a sense of what flow looks like and so on. But then we should talk specifically about cash flow for you. I'm seeing something specifically. Some of my goal here is to set you up for the next 3 months, give you some encouragement of what to look at, and do some strategic planning and programming. So if you guys have any questions at the end of this, I'm happy to share that and kind of answer more, get the pieces here. All right, let's just look at the report and see what we have so far. So we're going to start off here just with a really quick. I'm actually putting this on all studios. I was playing with this too soon. I'm going to just like the mega trend here of what we're just looking at and go down. This is all of our studios, and just the last 6 months. I kind of look at things. We also added this little bar here showing you the last quarter, so you can see that the overall trend. Bank accounts is exactly that. Like this is an asset class you have. This is the cash you have in your checking account. Obviously, this stuff goes up and down all the time. For the most part, everyone has gained somewhat of a base this year. Super great to have a base. If you're working with us, and this might be skewed towards studios working more with us than not, because we don't rely on consumer credit. We hate that. It's expensive. It puts you in a really horrible situation and leveraged by the bank. So we hold ourselves in a cash reserve. We want to at least have some set aside. So those weeks that dip down below the line on cash flow, we have some money we can put there. When it comes back up, we take it back, put it back in the savings account. We become our own bank. For the most part, our baseline has been able to stay steady for the entire year, which has been really great. And then specifically, like over the last few months, and I know a couple of you exactly you're feeling this because we've been working with you, we've been able to slowly increase that bank account. So that's really been great, as like just to gain back some of those that leverage that we've lost in the past. Where's it coming from? It's coming from here, accounts receivable. When accounts receivable is going up, what this means is that you've gotten projects. So what this is really saying is like AR goes up means we've sent invoices to our clients. Those invoices are still in our clients' hands. That's why it's accounts receivable. It's not yet collected and gone into cash, our bank account. But that slow growth of accounts receivables means that we've been able to bill more. Therefore, we've won more projects, or we've seen a little bit of growth. This isn't major spikes. You can see like overall, there's like a middle of a May moment. And I think we were all hoping that like this would just keep on climbing. It seems like there was a pocket of wins like right here in the early part of the quarter. And then there hasn't been a lot of new awards or at the same pace been awarded projects from that point on. But still, overall, the general trend is that the AR is higher than it was when we started the quarter. Super good news. It's great. You also notice like right here, this is a sneak peek, like it kind of means like this, what happened here, this peak gave us like a level ground here for a little bit. No new awards is what we're seeing here right away. So if we average it out, we're getting a flat line. Great. But I'm going to predict in, 3 weeks when I get the next month's report, I'm going to know that this trend is going to start going back down. I already know it. I'm looking at long-term cash flow on people and doing a lot of sales meetings right now. Joe's doing a lot of sales meetings to create some specific strategy for some of you, just to like find that next pocket of cash or readjust things for financials. But AR was overall for this quarter been pretty good. An overall a simple growth for us, and then holding on or being flatlined as we look at it. So what's that mean? It means total overall assets have gone up. We have cash on hand. A lot of us are looking at the next 8 weeks or so, knowing it's slow. Some of us are looking at 16 weeks, not so favorable, but that's usually not that unusual because 16 weeks means that, that's like beyond our usual sales cycle. But what's interesting is if I look too far in advance and I look at that long-term stuff, there's no sales filling in the gap. So I'm going to talk about that later. But as we know, the total assets are here, and that's what we're going to bank on. These total assets are what we're going to have available as we hit this next quarter slowdown. We'll call it the summer slowdown for now. Okay, so that's the asset side. Super great. Things are growing. So what's the other side of that? These are accounts payable. So here's something that, like, I love this trend, right? So what happened is when we get new projects in, this growth happens, we bring on freelancers. So we bring on freelancers. What happens? They send us invoices. So we have accounts payable. So accounts receivable are our invoices in our clients' hands. Got it. I'm sorry, this one, accounts receivable, invoices, our clients' hands. Got it. But this is our freelancers giving us invoice, our vendors giving us invoices that we have to pay out. What's great is that sometimes when there's a slow cycle and you're looking at mega trends and cycles that we've seen before, what happens is the industry picks up, we hire a bunch of freelancers, then we get cash poor really fast. And this AP sticks around. It's really bad. It's a total bummer. Freelancers don't want to work with us, whatever. But that's not what happened. We had enough cash to pay this stuff back down again. So the fact that this trend went down means that we were in cash balance. Money came in, we paid the bills as we needed to. We're holding on to the piece that we need to. Super great. Will that trend continue is what we're looking on, or what's the effect going to be? But this quarter's had an overall positive. AR's gone up, AP has gone down. Love that. And slowly the credit card debt has decreased. Those of you that know this whole trap, it's horrible. But we basically use our Amex. And the goal is when we first put our Amex out there, like we book all our software on the Amex. We have a basic spend rate, $2,000 or $3,000 a month. We pay that thing off, it goes back to zero. But then that slowly creeps up. It's a $2,000 balance, and then sometimes it's a $4,000, and the base of the Amex goes up. So that every time money comes in, we could just barely pay it off, and we get the same thing there. We can't hold that at zero. What this is showing us is that we've actually changed that behavior a little bit, in that the AR and cash that we have on hand, we can actually start chipping away at that bottom line of our credit cards. This is such a great trend. We can't get the credit cards ever to zero because we're utilizing it. That, we have to spend on our software using our credit cards. But to get the trend down means that fat that's been sitting around for a while that we should have paid off a long time ago, we're actually making some grabs at that. So I love that as a trend. So what does it mean? It means our overall liabilities also dropped. So here's the little thing I'm looking at. And this is like always like the cliffhanger that we have here. See this like liabilities creeping back up here? Usually that's not a big deal. Look at it, creeped up here too as we went into this quarter. We had some AP. Of course, we were doing projects, right? AP is going down. What does that mean? It means we stopped booking freelancers. So projects slow down. That's the trend of what's going on there. And this peak right here at the end here looks like we're booking freelancers again. Awesome, great trend. That means we might be busy. But here's what's interesting. This tiny little peak that went up here at the end doesn't match this little drop that we're seeing right here. This drop right here means that the projects slowly kind of came in, or we dropped it. I almost feel like what we did in response early on is we got heavy in freelancers. So anytime we get a little bit of a gain here, we get a little bit of an AP here. Okay, sure, we're being basically reactionary, but what we're missing is that staff, what the staff give us is that little bit of cushion that we can add a couple of projects and not go to freelancers. I think we're kind of weak as an overall industry right now, that we're really like running one-to-one. When projects come in, we go to freelancers. Come out, we go off. So globally speaking, trimming the fat earlier this year kind of less of the ability to win in those margins. That's just what I'm seeing. So I'm not saying that you should grab more staff or not. We're just recognizing that with the decisions we've made to survive, to keep things narrow, to run the small margin, because we're running small margins, and the clients are honestly awarding us projects with smaller margins, that we have to be smart at doing that. But we're going to always kind of see like any little bit of gain is somewhat lost in freelancers. So over time, we're going to want to pay attention to that and kind of look at that stuff. Okay, so that's the global trend. I think like I'm kind of just looking at things. I can't really drill down. I'm not going to drill down. Haven't drilled down much yet, but as I drill down in a second, you're going to see some more segments. But you can see the behavior parts of this thing here. The next thing I want to do is I want to look at this thing. I'm just going to go back to the beginning of 2023, though. So we can look at the last 6 months, but look at this. This actually looks pretty nice because what we can really see is like, hey, the big picture of what 2023 looked like, and then how that might be trending differently now. So 2023, totally how it felt. We were okay in 2022, and man, we were losing. So our cash was just disappearing piece by piece. And this year, we were asking ourselves a question of that survive till 25 moment or whatever. And this last quarter, we can see this kind of mega trend slowly coming back up. Love it. It doesn't seem like we're gonna get past the earlier or late in the winter peak, though. Looks like we've peaked out again. Probably gonna stay that way through the summer. By the way, I think this is a normal summer trend. Summers when people are sending their kids to overnight camp, they're taking vacations, they're not obligating themselves to big projects. When the fall comes, will be the big test. But we're just looking at a summer kind of trend there. Accounts receivable, though, look at this, like also a nice big gain. I think there is a bit of confidence that we know that the industry has bounced back a little bit. These 2023 months where we're flatlining our projects, really not winning, feeling kind of desperate, or in some of our cases, we were really feeling this one. I remember this crash here. A lot of people were calling me and asked me for the hard questions, and we had to go through process layoffs and what have you. This trend here is kind of getting us back to that big piece. So I love the fact that projects are starting to be awarded again. And look at this peak here. It's the best peak we've seen in the last, what would be 18 months. So I love that we're seeing now a peak of awards. It flatlined, but we can now see where we've recovered some of that. And that's why I think those overall liabilities are dropping down. So overall assets are getting to another high. This kind of like homogenizes it a little bit, but we have a little bit of a high there in assets. And our liabilities, our AP is dropping down, credit cards are dropping down, and our overall liabilities are going down. So truly the mega trend, let's say the 18-month mega trend, is that we're healthier than we've been before. I think we've been through the war. We made the decisions that we needed to. We right-sized our company, and we're seeing some benefits there. I'm with you. Like, I want this to hold on tight for a while. We'll see how it plays itself out, but at least we know that there's a healthy gain here. So I'm feeling very good. I think all of you are feeling really good now of like what that looks like and how that feels. So I wanted to show you two segments of the industry, because these are usually the bigger segments, but they're kind of an indicator of overall global trends. The first is the entertainment segment. So I'm just going to go, these are companies primarily focused on entertainment, branding, entertainment promotion, and so on. I want you to look at this trend of growth that's happened since late last year. 2023 was a dog, right? There was a lot of crazy things happening with the strikes, killed so many segments of this industry, and the merging companies down in the entertainment space really has just driven down that segment into a place where it's super competitive and hard to keep up with for some people. But those of you who have persevered, you've seen a little bit of growth, cycle, and build up here. I'm going to show you what this means in the content space too, but clearly a rebound or a reaction to what that strike is and getting things back to normal. There are more kind of pending trends happening in entertainment, so we're going to have to play itself out. But overall, entertainment's been looking very good. So this just shows you like the work product in entertainment has gone up. I want you to look at this in comparison to the commercial space. Almost nearly flatlined. We have some trends, but that difference in the spike of entertainment, hey, entertainment's doing this thing compared to commercial basically is like, we're fighting for these things. What we know is that besides the commercial space kind of being flatlined, look at total assets really is just like, almost very small variability in this space here. So we can kind of see like it's there, but what we're seeing here mostly, I want you to look at this, is that even though this is flatline, look at the peaks and valleys of the AP. So again, this is us hiring freelancers. So every little gain there, we're basically going to freelancers. And this is where, if you're feeling like there isn't any margin left, like there's no, after you do the work, you really have like very little left in your bank account and you have to go back and get another project to keep it going. This is that reaction to it. It's like, it's really us like turning on and turning off freelancers. So our asset classes are staying the same, but the freelancers are jumping up and down. And we're trying to like basically micromanaging that. I know at least one of you are feeling that, like your entire production team is basically feeling that micromanaging is wearing out the producers. They're always like hiring and dropping down and finding and looking, and we're constantly managing this freelancer pool, probably a greater burden than we're used to. And that's a burn rate we're often seeing. I can't find the grid for that. I wish I could have like producer burnout or salesperson burnout, like, like I've worked really hard and seeing no results from it kind of burnout. But I know from my weekly meetings and the small groups specifically that we've been doing, I've been hearing this for a while. What's nice about the small group is we're all willing to tell each other the truth. So I get to hear a little bit more when the community's together, groups together, and venting some of that. But this burnout is happening there, especially in the commercial space. So I find that one really, really interesting, is that we have found a way to survive. We are pushing our way through to it. We're looking at some gains, but we can see that overall segment pieces there. So that to me is like some of the big takeaway of what's going on there. What I know is that as we're going into the fall, I want to kind of talk about what I would love to see for you guys as we finish this year off. So we are halfway through the year right now. We can see the industry is somewhat bouncing back and give us a new floorboard to kind of work off of. This might not feel like a familiar pattern to you, but you're kind of getting your legs underneath you now, and you're not as desperate as you were, or not as in transition as you were in 2023 or early 2024. And you're kind of recognizing like, okay, wait, there was a spring that went up. Summer seems to be flatlining. Can we predict, or hopefully predict, that fall will pick itself back up again and we'll have a good winter, like our old days? I think that's what we're all hoping for. But what if we don't? What if we don't hit that up cycle that we often want to see there? What if what that's going to look like for us is that this AR right here, what we're seeing, this drop right here, is the first indicator. And long-term cash flow, like if you're using a cash board and you're looking into long-term accounts receivable, or if you don't have a cash board, just ask your bookkeeper for an AR report and figure out the number of how much AR is due to you in the next 30 days, how much AR due is in the next 60 days, and how much AR is in net 90 days. Now, the trick is that most of you might not have aging accounts receivable that far in advance, meaning that the invoice isn't in the client's hand. But what you might see in the net 90 days is if you put projected accounts receivable. And what I mean by that is, the first invoice, the first 50% is in the client's hand when the project's awarded. That second 50 is due maybe near the end of halfway through the project or at the end of the project. So that second 50 is not aging, meaning it's not in the client's hand. But if you were to measure out that projected AR also, you would want some balance. Like, for example, if you were owed $50,000 in the first 60 days, or in the next 60 days, you would want $40,000, about half to the same amount in the projected or long-term AR. If that long-term AR is getting down to zero, that's a clear indicator that no new projects are being awarded. And that's what, if you're seeing that now, this is like looking really far into the headlights. You're going to see more and more of this drop coming down. That's going to be a really big indicator of like, wait a second, I'm not going to have cash in the future. And if you don't have that cash, we want to preserve that cash, right? We don't want to like spend it or catch up on things necessarily. We want to be able to spread out our payments or be slow to engage. What I mean by that is, see down here in this accounts payable, we want this to drop down and stay down even though we've been awarded a project. We don't want to necessarily bring on a whole bunch of freelancers to help us pitch those projects. We might need to to preserve some of that cash, even just to win the projects, to get them in house. And then when it's first awarded, leverage our staff as much as possible. It might even change your creative approach on some projects based off of the staff that you already have, and not pitch some crazy idea that involves a whole bunch of outsourced labor to get it done, but depend on yourself or people close to you, your current animation and design team, to do a bunch of heavy lifting up front. If you have to finish with the team at the end, great, but preserve some of that. We just don't want to get that AP obligation out there if the cash is going to be short. So that's what I want you to look at. Like, I want you to be able to project in the future and be able to make cash decisions today to preserve that nature. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. I did a whole bunch of talk, but I tried really hard to fill in the blanks of what AR, AP is, long-term cash, and that kind of stuff, because I know it's terms I use on a daily basis, but you might hear them once a week, once a month, once a quarter from your folks, and so on. Okay, so that's what I have. Listen, I don't have any counterpart today. I don't have anyone mad or anyone chiming out questions for me. So that's all in your hands. You're gonna have to start asking me questions so what we can make this somewhat entertaining. First of all, overall thoughts. Big picture thoughts. Anyone relating to this, or anyone possibly seeing something that a different trend they want to talk about? I'd be happy to throw that out there. No one? Come on. How about this? Like, when you're who's seeing like an uptick, just raise your hands or whatever, uptick in overall project awards? Anybody seeing an uptick? Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, right. Seth, Jay, yeah. Oh yeah, Matt. We talked to Shauna last week on the weekly briefing. That's great. Right. Okay. So there is like a somewhat of a trend of that uptick, and that's current projects. So then if I say, looking forward, how about an uptick in leads? Are the leads, so that would be projects that would award in the next 30 days or 60 days. You're seeing like that increasing too. So yeah, originally they're showing camera. It seems like about half of you are now saying, yeah, the leads are still there, or the leads are generating in the same way. And Doug too. Thanks, Doug. So that's one of the first things we can just, like, this is very simple indicator, but we kind of look and see what that trend looks like. Yeah, Doug, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question regarding your receivables and projections. Do you work on a cash basis or accrual basis? Because if you were working on an accrual basis, you would automatically have a forward-looking, you would book the revenue and be able to see
That's right.
projected revenue out.
No, this is all cash basis. The way we do this, because we want to get a sense of like, the way we look at this report is what it looks or what it feels like to be the entrepreneur. So like, if I look at my checking account, if I open my Bank of America account balance in the morning, what does it look like? So I use the cash balance for this so that we get the same kind of understanding of trend. But that's a really good question. You're right. If you did on an accrual basis, what that would mean is you put in your future projected revenue as well, because you've already earned it, or you're earning it as you get the project done. So
right. And then
we wouldn't necessarily recognize it that way.
Gauge the percentage of the job that's done and when it's owed, and you would be able to track it, those metrics. Yeah. So I was just curious, cash is fluid, as you just noted, and it's what you have on hand, but it's difficult to project out.
That's right. If I were looking at what Doug is asking, by the way, is like, if you're looking at financials for prep for like tax reasons, or like if you had to give a report to investors or that kind of stuff, you would show them kind of mega trends with what has already been awarded as an asset being accounts receivable. But we're talking about more of like what it's like to be an owner and the behavior part of it. Like, what does it feel like? What decisions you have to make? And the fluidity of a cash report allows you to see like the peaks and valleys. And that's what we have to live out on a daily basis. We're trying to correct it with our behaviors as we go along. So yeah, good point, Doug. Thank you. Okay, so if that with that part in their case, I know that a lot of you really, the hardest thing that we can do is sit on cash, because one of the things we do is feel somewhat desperate, like we owe somebody money, or to be honest, like we want to make distributions to ourselves. One of my encouragements to you would be absolutely positively keep paying yourself. I want you to feel the burden of what you're owed as a business owner. One of the first things I often see is the burnout of a business owner is because they haven't paid themselves for 3 months. And it's very difficult to like make up for that lost time and that lost energy. That pay yourself first mentality has an understanding that the business has its responsibility to pay you and it's a business problem to solve. I know if you're looking at cash, listen, if it's a cash problem and you're saying, Tim, the easiest way to solve a cash problem in the business is to not take the cash out. I'm the easiest person to negotiate with. I can just say, don't pay me, right? I don't have to talk to anybody else, have to deal with anything else. And that when you have to and it's necessary, you do it. But if we're going to do that first, or what happens when we do that first, is we kind of bury our head in the sand to a mega trend that we should be dealing with. And we should ask the question, wow, if it really has that kind of impact, then the business needs to get into a more viable situation. We need to find the leverage it needs to win new projects and find something sooner. So I keep that burden, which I do with my clients, keep that burden on the cash flow to keep on paying the business owner. Then I could see that issue and that trend sooner than later and start dealing with it in a proactive way. So I want you to know that like going into this summer, it feels like a little bit mushy. We can see the beginning of something. I don't have a crystal ball, but if you keep on paying yourself, the burden's going to be there on your cash flow. The burden's going to be there in your business, and that burden requires you to respond to it. And I know many of you want me to remove those burdens. I get it. I don't want you to go to, go to bed at night crying because of all the issues you have. But this allows you actually to solve those problems sooner than later. Therefore, you get more time to solve the problem and actually reduces your stress. By hiding from it, doing something reactionary, and then waiting for another reactionary moment, although you feel like a superhero, you've actually burned some time and money that you could have solved the problem. There are two major areas in solving the problem. One is sales and sales growth. So if you can't in your mind or within your CRM or within your sales team find the targets that have the money, we need to talk about pivoting. We need to talk about like understanding the trends, maybe what you pitch, maybe where you're growing, maybe who you're asking, maybe your friends left the business that you usually went to. Those big shifts and changes require you to make a pivot. Awesome. Let's definitely deal with that sooner than later. Because in relational based sales, we have to find those relationships sooner than later because it takes time to have those relationships. So that's one thing we want to do. The other is expenses. Cutting back expenses. You can do small ones, but eventually you have to get to your team. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to leave that to second. We want the company and your clients to pay your bills first before we have to start cutting employees. But that's also another strategic moment. Hey, if my company's constantly under pressure, I have to be asking the question, do I have the right makeup of a team? Did I anticipate something that actually wasn't true? I brought on this certain designer or someone with a certain specialty, someone in a segment, an industry segment that I really wanted to get into. I really wanted to get into gaming. So I brought on this gaming designer, but I actually haven't found the right sales lead to generate those leads for that person to be correct for us. So I put first things first. It didn't work out. Let's ask that critical question. Do we see in the next 6 months us actually accomplishing that goal? Or should we leave that investment for the future, change our team to match the current needs, and then reinvest in, gaming growth in the future when we have the right time or right runway or can solve that problem in a sales thing. So I hope that makes sense to you. I often just want to understand where the pressure points would be so I can see the decision sooner than later. So I will make those decisions. One of the biggest mistakes we all make as entrepreneurs is waiting too long to make those decisions, hoping it goes away, hoping next week's different than this week, and so on. And we don't have to jump to the conclusions and be super reactionary, but we have to anticipate the need for them, think through it strategically, and then when the need comes up or the time comes up, we're ready to make that decision and we don't hesitate when we have to. Those are my encouragements for you. Look ahead, feel comfortable, be good. If you want to know my prediction, and then maybe we'll have to look back this in 3 months, Jay, write this down so you can tell me if I did it right or not 3 months from now. But it feels like this is a normal summer. And what that means is that there are normal summer slowdowns, and it feels that way to me. I don't know why it feels that way to me. Maybe I'm just crazy, but 18 years looking at finances, I can kind of get a sense and hearing of what's going on in the sales pipelines of many individuals, cash flows of what's going on, what the production team and sales teams are up against over and over again. And I know what those old summers felt like. I know what the words are playing, and it just feels the same way. The very unusual behavior that we've seen, without a doubt, for the last 6 months, if not the last year, is this ghosting effect, where clients call us, they bring on something, and it just disappears. I can tell you that hasn't dissipated. It has not dissipated at all. So many of us are anticipating that job coming in. It was awarded, whatever those words are that we have. So we think that it's ready to go. And then it stops or pause. Even if it just pauses for those 3 weeks, you are burning 3 weeks of overhead waiting for something to come in. And it's really, really mean, because we're thinking it's going to be here tomorrow, and it's not, and it doesn't show up for 3 weeks. And we just wasted 3 weeks in burn rate. That's where our margins are going. That crunch in our margins we're feeling is disappearing to this ghosting effect. We're going to have to find a behavior to understand and discern that. One of them might be, we don't bring on a team or anticipate bringing on a team until the check is in the bank account. We can start, it's an extreme, but it's like the critical thinking we need to start putting out there is like, it's not awarded until it's awarded, until the kickoff. The talk of a kickoff call is not a kickoff of it. And we have to be more discerning of what a kickoff means. We might even need to define that for our clients. Hey, this is really great. Glad we're kicking things off. No problem. Our engagement begins, and we find a new word. Our engagement will begin when you do this. And then you say to them, hey, this bid I gave you requires an engagement as of July 17th. If the engagement doesn't July 17th, I might need to repurpose our team or rework the numbers or find different resources to get that done. So the client knows, like, they have a deadline or an expiration date for that bid. And if they go beyond that and they haven't engaged you, you just have the right to review it before you say yes to it, or so on, so that we give them an understanding, not a deadline so much, but understanding that this number can't last forever. We anticipated a certain timeline, and that changed. So those are things that we can all kind of put into practice, even try. And maybe in the next couple of weeks, we can see and explore what people have tried and how to do it. But this ghosting effect really, really is such a strange trend. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm doing some research, and I'm going to share with you the next couple of weeks of what I think it might be causing it. But it is on all levels. It's in all company sizes, and it's all over the world. So there's clearly not something of just like a bad behavior in a certain segment. It's something else is making it happen that way. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. We definitely are. All right. Any more questions? I know it's a little bit, it's 2:35 my time. We usually try to wrap this up in a half hour, but want to be available to you, answer any questions. I can geek out on this stuff all day. So you guys can, it's up to you if you want me to keep on going or not, but I really, truly love this stuff.
Tim, with your bottom line barometer, you showed the accounts receivable on commercial, but what are you seeing for entertainment, like from 2023 to present?
Here, let me show you that. You're saying entertainment? Accounts receivable? Okay, there you go. Oh, I thought I did show this, but just in case. Oh, you're right. I only showed it for the year. Yeah. This is that.
And total assets as well.
Yeah. Well, total assets would go up with accounts receivable because the bank accounts are staying pretty solid. So we're seeing growth since 2023, right? When I make this 2024, this is what you can't really feel all 18 months. You can remember it. I think this is what it feels like in entertainment. Right now, if you're running an entertainment company, it doesn't look at this trend. It doesn't look like it's as spiky, like as big of a difference in the last 6 months. But if I go back to the 18th month look at it, you can see that there's kind of a tipping point in the late winter that brought something back here that started a trend that slowly has been growing. So in comparison, that's what this graph told you. In comparison to 2023, 2024 has been a slow growth and a big growth. I think what's happened here is there are fewer companies in this space, to be honest. I've known a couple of people that had to move on or pivot or go after certain areas. So I think there might be fewer people fishing in this hole, as well as smaller holes to fish in, or fewer fish in the hole to catch or whatever. So we might be seeing that as like there's just an uptick that the industry itself balanced itself out over the 2023. This wiped out a lot of that. And so those who survived are reconnecting with their clients and growing, because the overall segments are there. Although I can tell you specifically in the OTT platforms, there's been a uptick in requests for deliverables. So there's more deliverables on projects, and that is growing steadily. But the type of work or the margins on that work. So I might ask you to do 3 times the deliverables, but I'm asking you to do it at a 12% margin instead of a 22% margin that you would have had in the past. So there's like an intelligence that Apple and Amazon and Netflix and so on have caught on to, and they're basically giving you the right amount of money to get it done at the margins they want you to get it done at. And that seems to be at scale across the board with the larger OTT platforms. So I can get the AR and assets to grow, but I think that margin is being eaten away. The companies that have survived specifically have redesigned their teams to handle it in a somewhat factory method. So they grab a packet from the client, and it's almost like it's weird. It's almost like every third Netflix project is given. So like you can almost predict it's coming, but you don't know which one it is because you didn't bid on it. So like, okay, now here's your turn. Here's your 22 deliverables, and then your team has to keep it going at a small margin. Well, people are basically perfecting that deliverables. So when they get it in, they're not templatizing necessarily, but you get the idea. It's like they know how to find all the small efficiencies in there and keep things cranking out. So that's what's been gaining. One thing, I was talking to someone earlier this week, and the understanding of like Apple, if Apple might make a deal with you for the year that they're going to give you like hypothetically $1 million worth of work. Well, if they give you $1.2 million worth of work, you owe them a rebate, because they make a contract that says, hey, everything above this amount of gross revenue in the year, you're actually going to have to give us some of that back. Meaning we don't know all we're going to give you, but we think your team and team size, this is enough to run that team for a 12-month period. So if we give you more projects, but using the same team, we actually want some of that efficiency back. And you literally write them a check back for money they gave you above that gross receipt. So there's a lot of intelligence working with us and against us in some of these systems. So we have to be entrepreneurial in that and recognizing those opportunities are there, but we have to kind of adjust it to meet them correctly. Ryan shaking his head like, there's no way I'd give that. You'd come and take it from my cold, dead hand.
It's just, that seems like one of the, like, I can't even imagine what that does to your motivation of working and how you would structure your team because of that. That's nuts.
Yeah. What's happened is I've seen that they basically build a silo of a certain team and team structure, because they know they're going to get a certain revenue. They can find that whole 12-month period, they can basically program it out. And when you get extra money, they're not letting you keep it as profit, because you haven't really adjusted your team. You haven't added new team members for that extra 100,000 or 200,000. So Apple recognizes that, and like, and I think they delegate and probably analyze how much work they've given you in the past. And they're expecting that to be somewhat of like, we know what your team size is. We're not asking you, but we kind of get the idea, and keep it somewhat balanced that way.
Oh yeah.
Wait till, we think AI is disruptive when it comes to making graphics. Wait till AI is analyzing our workflows and efficiencies and determining for the client how much they should pay us on a per person or per deliverable basis. It's probably already there. We don't talk about it enough in our industry of those trends working against us that ways. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Brent. That was a good question there. Anything else? This is fun. I don't know about you guys. So, and that what I'm going to grab in the next couple of weeks. By the way, We have some new advisors at RevThink. We're processing things differently of how we go after sales and looking at sales work, just to get some different engagements and different strategies from the sales side, as well as the production side. Hopefully we get to focus more on like what these rates are, get into the rate categories. And Brian and his wife are actually helping us do a survey. We're going to kind of look at a survey to look at rates, rate bands, and that kind of stuff, just to get a sense of what's changing and what's there. So I'm kind of excited to look at some of those global trends that way, give us more insight, and maybe where it can be competitive or where we should be smart in certain areas as we grow our businesses. So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're also really kind of pushing forward on the community platform, in this idea of like engagement within the community, of understanding of what the needs are, and then starting another group, another small group. So look forward to August when we kick off these small groups. We're going to find, last time we had like West Coast people, East Coast people, and live action people, but I think we're understanding more of what the segments are of maybe size of business. Hey, if you're, $1 million business or smaller, we're going to talk about that season. $2 million or larger business, you're in a different season, you're gonna have different needs and demands. So we're gonna play with some of those segments. So pay attention to that. If you want to be part of those confab groups, we'd love to have you. And we're gonna try to do them somewhat like 8-week or 10-week kind of runs at them to see if we can address some of the needs, and then we can reassess what those small groups are. I like the idea is that you can be in it for a while and then have an excuse to leave without hurting people's feelings. So like we can like, hey, this is the quarterly shakeup. You can now jump to a different small group if you want to. So we're going to kind of work that through. That's it. I appreciate you guys. You guys know I love this work, and I especially love like those numbers and kind of understanding things more. If there's anything I could do to help you, feel free to jump on community, post some ideas, start the discussion, or DM me any way possible. We exist so you can thrive in business, life, and career. Hold us to the challenge. We want to be part of this in every way. We appreciate you all. And until next Wednesday, you have a great week. Bye, everyone.